Okay, today we're working on the steering box and the installation of the box to the chassis. And we have mocked it up, pre-fitted it, and have determined that in order for it to not only functionally work good, but also to appear good, we're going to have to modify the mounting bracket in such a way that we're going to make studs out of grade 8 bolts, weld them through the bracket, finish them, and then be able to reposition the bracket to the frame. And by doing that, the bracket will not be hanging way down below the frame and or way above the frame. And the studs are required because we can't do a through bolt. We could drill through the frame, put sleeves in to keep the frame from crushing from the tension of the bolt, but I didn't want that to appear, or a bolt head to appear on the outside of the frame. So, been there, done this before. We're taking a grade 8 bolt. We're going to cut the head off of it. We're going to prepare the end in a taper, slip it into the bracket, and then we're going to TIG weld that on both sides, not only on the side where the head comes off, because that's going to fit flush against the frame, but on the other side, and that'll make 2 studs in the bottom bracket that you can slide the steering box on and position it in the frame properly. Okay, now what we've done is to accommodate modifying the bracket to mount the Vegas steering box to the chassis. We've taken a grade 8 bolt, cut the head off of it, and then we have prepared the end of it so that when we're TIG welding it, we're getting down into the root of the bolt and giving it good stability in the weld and good connectivity in the weld. And what we'll do with that is we'll go through the back of the steering box on its ear, and we'll bring these up to where they just project above the mounting bracket, and that allows us to then get a good root weld down into what we're making a stud out of in a grade 8 bolt in order to mount the steering box. Okay, back to welding. pulled up nicely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that pulled up nicely. I've got maybe a little bit of fiddling to do over here.
While you're there, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, what we're doing here is massaging the final fit to what is expected to be the bracket as it mounts to the frame. And the idea is, of course, to be sure that these studs are pulling up reasonably nice, and they are, because the bracket's going to be, the bracket and the studs are going to be welded permanent to the frame. So that being said, we want to be sure that before we get to the frame, the chassis, and weld this bracket on, that everything is fairly smooth as far as the assembly goes, and that we're not fighting it while it's on the frame. Which, by the way, that little trick right there is a back saver. Your back lasts a lot longer when you don't have to bend down each time. Now we got a little gap here, and we're going to make an adjustment for that. Probably put a washer there, as opposed to pulling awkwardly on the box or awkwardly on the bracket. You know, the steering box is cast iron, so you got to be careful for not overstressing it and bending it. And slide that puppy in there temporarily. That'll give us a good fit. And we can cinch this puppy up. Now that's a lot of bracket for the steering box. Yep, that's going to work. That will work. Now I'm going to take it back apart. And we will be in good shape. We can put a washer and an elastic stop nut, nylock, lock nut, and this puppy will cinch up. Now I'm going to leave it. Well, I'm going to make one more little adjustment on the fit here. This had a little rub going in. We're going to take and open the hole up just a smidge. This has a little rub on it. Oh, not a day that I want to repeat. Okay, we are back on the 32 highboy frame, where we have previously pre-fitted the Vega steering box, and then we had to modify the bracket and a couple of things along the way, because I didn't want the steering box sticking down below the frame. So in order to do that, I put some studs, welded studs, into the bracket that come through the steering box, and then the steering box then remains to have one free bolt on the top. And what we've done is we have replaced this, or repositioned this, according to the need to not be below the frame, but also be in the correct geometry between left and right. And we don't know what our did not know what our final length of our steering drag link was going to be. So we made up a kind of a haphazard out of a piece of tubing, flat metal in a hole, and so on and so forth, and connected that. Now we know exactly what the length of that is going to be, with the steering box position in the correct position on the frame. And putting it in the correct position is to have the pitman arm square with the center line of the car and not skewed to the angle of the frame. And we've done that, so we now are home free and know where we need to be, and we can finish welding the original bracket of the Vega steering box to the frame on the inside, on the motor side, and we're good to go. Our next episode now will include, after we had previously mounted the Vega steering box to the frame, we will have had the body sitting on the chassis as a certainly a preliminary fit, possibly a final fit before we do some painting on it. But that said, that'll give us the ability to determine what our steering linkage requirement will be to the steering column. And we will position the steering column with the body on, and then we will mock up the steering linkage down to the Vega steering box.